Hey, if you don't have time to go to the beach, just build one. Welcome to another episode of The Gamesmith, and in today's episode we're going to be building beach tiles as part of our continuing series on water terrain. Now, if you haven't seen episode 1 yet, please go and check that out, because a lot of the skills that we cover in episode 1 will not be repeated here. We're just going to kind of speed over them because we already covered them in the last episode. If you've already seen it, I'll see you at the table. Just like in episode 1, we're going to be using these large 11 by 14 inch cotton canvas boards. Again, I'm going to be working on 2 different boards at the same time, so don't panic if you see 2 different shorelines, because we're going to mix and match our footage as we go along. To start, we're going to need the correct size of tinfoil to cover our canvas board. The direction of our water is going to flow this way, horizontally along the width of the board. Just like we did in the water tiles video, we loosely roll up our tinfoil and flatten it out. Don't flatten it out too much, we want to preserve the texture we created. We use the same 60-40 PVA to water mixture we made in episode 1. We liberally and evenly spread the glue over the canvas. Place the board on the tinfoil to make sure the edges are covered. Add any extra glue that is needed in order to make sure the foil sticks. We definitely don't want this to fall apart at the game table. And we can also cut the foil to size if need be. Now, when gluing the tinfoil is done, make sure that it's 100% dry before moving on, at least 8 hours. I found some decorative sand at the dollar store that is the perfect color. This will save me from having to add some tan paint to our glue and sand mixture. We're also going to need a lot of PVA glue. This is almost a liter and it cost me about $10 Canadian. There's enough here to last me quite a while. Now we're going to pour about 2/3 of this bag of sand into this container. Now I'm going to add the glue. I didn't measure the amount of glue that I used. I did about a 6 or 7 second gentle pour. How's that for a scientific measurement? What I'm actually concerned with is the consistency of the mixture. This is far too thick, so I'll add some water to thin it out. Don't forget, you can always add water, but you can't subtract it, so add the water sparingly. This is still too thick, so I'll add a bit more water. The final result should be something like runny oatmeal. Just make sure you have thoroughly mixed the sand and the water together. Be sure to store it in an airtight container, and it'll last for about a week. If you add a few tablespoons of water every week, it'll last indefinitely. Next, I recommend that you use a tray of some kind for your build, an old cookie sheet for example. Now I want the beach to be on the long edge of the board with the water flowing towards it. We take our sand mixture and pour it out on the side we want our beach on. I suggest using a spatula or a thick craft stick like a tongue depressor in order to spread the mixture around. This can be quite messy. After all, we have white glue and sand. Separately, they always seem to get everywhere, and we're using them both. You don't have to use all your mixture on one board, but I chose to. Spread the sand over the board to approximately how big you want your beach to be. Make sure you don't pile up the mixture more than a few millimeters or 1/8 of an inch thick. Now I'm using the long edge of my craft stick to spread out the mixture by dabbing it into the sand and pulling it out and quickly repeating that motion. This action causes the mixture to create small ridges, but as the mixture dries, gravity will smooth the sand out. Make sure you get the mixture right up to the edges of the board. Lastly, I want to gently vibrate the board so the mixture will settle into all the nooks and crannies in the tinfoil. We want to remove any mixture that's dripped over the sides and save it for another project. Now in 24 hours, this will be hard as rock. I waited until the next morning just to be safe, and here's our dry beach tile. As promised, the sand mixture settled out flat. You can also see on the edges here that our canvas board didn't warp at all. On the back you can see where some of the mixture stuck to the bottom. You should be able to remove that with your fingers or just a simple tool. The sand mixture is quite hard, but there is a little bit of give to the actual board. Next, we start layering our tissue paper. Again, please take a look at episode 1 on water terrain to get all of the details of what we're going to be doing here. Starting with a narrow sheet of black tissue paper, I want to cut the ends into an uneven edge. We then use our PVA water mixture in order to cover the foil. I only want to cover about a third of the foil surface on our build. We then press our black tissue into the texture below it. Then we fold over the back just like in episode 1. Then we need to wait about 3 or 4 hours for that to dry. We can accelerate the dry time by using a fan, which will cut that time in half. After the first layer is dried, we can add the dark blue. Just like with the black tissue, we want to shape the shoreward edge of our blue tissue. I want this layer to roughly cover half the tinfoil surface. I can also adjust how I set this tissue so that the edge isn't parallel with the black layer below it. We then use the PVA mixture again in order to fix the blue tissue where we want it. If the leading edge isn't quite secure, just paint some glue over it. Next, we grab an old toothbrush and push some texture into the tissue. Don't worry about tearing the tissue, that helps with our watery illusion. Make sure that the excess tissue on the back is secure. And once again, we let that layer dry. A fan will help. Now that the lower layers are dry, we'll add our light blue layer. I've already cut this tissue to size, and I wanted this to go all the way onto the shore. However, because the silver is quite bright, I'm going to add a second blue layer on top of the first. I think this will help create the illusion of shallow water. Just as we did for the other 2 layers, we want to create an uneven edge on the light blue tissue. A quick check on how we're going to lay this out on our first layer is helpful. Now we add the PVA water mixture to the beach terrain and the rest of our board. Then lay the tissue and gently press it into the glue. Next, we can take a toothbrush, or in this case I'm using a stronger nylon brush, in order to press and texture the edges of the tissue on the shoreline. Don't worry about the tears along the beach, that's exactly what we want. We then affix a tissue on the back, just as we've done twice already. Next, we repeat everything we did on our first blue layer. Only this time we want to move the top layer down from the top of the edge so that the 2 layers don't entirely overlap one another. Then with the brush we can lightly press the 2 layers together. I can even add a bit more texture to the surface layer if I want. Now we need to deal with the excess tissue on the back and then wait for our build to dry. Now that the tile is completely dry, we can see the obvious transitions between the depths, including the froth on the sand from the water rolling up on the beach. Now we begin our dry brush, just like we did in episode 1 on the water tiles. When it comes to the froth on the beach, we want to be a little more generous with the white paint. I'll zoom in here so you can see that I'm just not trying to capture the texture of the tissue, but also the leading edge where the tissue meets the sand. In addition to the water's edge, I'm also painting the textures a little further down. These are the white caps of the little waves chasing one another up the beach as the water becomes more shallow. We should repeat this all along the shoreline, but we don't have to create a continuous or unbroken line of froth along the beach. Here's a close-up of our frothy waves before we move on to the final step. Once everything is dry, we should add a gloss finish to our beach tiles. Make sure to work in a well-ventilated area and follow the instructions on the product in order to get the best results. I'm very happy with how this turned out. The sand smoothed out quite nicely, and the waves breaking on the shoreline are also quite nice. I also like the joint between the tiles where the sand and the shallow waves meet. Unfortunately, I didn't match my dark blue and black layers between the 2 tiles very well, so they look awkward when they're side by side. Similarly, if I reverse the tiles, the different layers are completely out of sync with each other. Even if I move the tiles, the transitions are slightly better, but now the tiles are ajar. If I turn the tiles towards each other, I could use them as a river. I could also put a water tile between its 2 sides in order to widen that river. Overall, I'm quite happy with how this project turned out. These beach tiles are going to get a lot of mileage in my Kingmaker and Skull and Shackle adventure paths. I like these much more than the construction paper layers I've been using up till now. The obvious color changes will really help identify the movement penalties characters suffer as they wade into the water. If you have any suggestions on how to improve this simple and inexpensive project, I'd very much like to hear from you. If you like what we're doing here at the Gamesmith, please subscribe to the channel. We also very much appreciate a thumbs up, a comment, and clicking on that notification bell. Also, please check out our website at thegamesmith.org and several social media sites. We're on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. In our next video, we're going to be adding waves to our water tiles, just small and medium ones to start. Until next time, I'll see you at the table.